And I look at the defensive side of the ball as well, because I'm like, me and my son, I'm like, this is who you're going to be going up against every day. These are the people that are going to help make you better, and vice versa, you know. So I'm really excited, and with the quarterbacks that they have too. And I look at the offense as being really high powered. Some of the linemen that they have, I've met a couple of them while we were down there. Just some big, strong boys that are looking to get after it.
All Americans too, from JUCO.
All Americans. And I seen somebody mention yesterday, I seen it, where he said, I will not be surprised if Grambling has the best run attack in the country. Not just in the Swac, but in the country. First time I've seen anything like that. So to be honest, I'm like, get used to hearing things like that out of a lot of the HBCUs. This the best in the country, that the best in the country. They're ranking right up there. All of us like that quick in a few months. Just the conversation alone, even if you don't believe it or not, to be mixed up in a conversation like that is something to pat yourself on the back for.
Exactly. And we have Kevin Pryor. He said, wasn't Grambling's finest hour, but this too shall pass. The G-men will be fine. And like Mr. Bordeaux pointed out, the offensive line upgrades. I've talked to Romero. Brother's a big-time player. He's going to do his thing, and others as well. And then you have the offensive play calling of Hugh Jackson. And I made a video. I don't know how it got shut down. I was keeping it too real, I guess. But if your plan B is Hugh Jackson calling the offense and then having another offensive coordinator to learn from him, that's not a bad plan B.
Right, not at all. And speaking of Romero, that boy has a presence. He has a presence about him. We were on the visit at the same time that he was, and he has an aura, and he wants it. I was listening to him speak and just seeing him speak with the offensive line coach and things like that, just in regular conversation. Didn't even have much to do with football, but he has a plan for himself. And it's really good to see him. And I'm proud to say, my son is going to be on the team with him. He's a real leader. So I'm excited to see him grow. Now, the Briles situation, I have opinion on it. Obviously everyone has a different opinion from what we've been seeing, but okay.
Again, and brother, you can, if you choose to water it down, I understand. It's a lot.
My disclaimer is always that this is just my opinion. Yes. This is my opinion, and I pray it doesn't offend anybody, and I hope everybody knows that even though it's my opinion and you may not like it, it's coming from a good place. All right. Our community as Black people, right? Mm-hmm. What if, let's just hypothetically, what if Art Briles was Black and the students or players that were accused of some of these terrible things that they may not have done? I'm not speaking on that. Who's guilty and who's not. But what if they were white and someone like Art Briles, like I said, let's pretend he's Black. He can't go out and get a job anywhere. Not even as the head person. He can't get a job anywhere. What would our community be saying then?
I got to be very honest for everyone that's listening, no matter if you don't agree with the Art Briles when he was signed or not. Let me be honest. If the students were white and the culture Black, we would have had some people in our community saying, hey, I know this was a bad situation, but he still needs a job.
Just saying.
I got to be honest.
You agree? You see where I'm going with it?
Yeah, I got to be honest with that. That's
if he personally didn't get accused of doing anything, we would be screaming, "Why is he being punished for something they did?" Now, like I said, I don't know, if you feel, he covered it up or he didn't talk about it or whatever else. But this again, my opinion. Okay. Maybe he shouldn't be in complete charge of everybody. If you feel that way, he shouldn't be in complete charge of these young men or the organization, because at the end of the day, it all stops and starts with the head coach. So if he pretty much gets demoted into a lesser role where he's not in charge, he's just in charge of the offensive play calling. Now, of course, we know he's going to be spending a great deal of time with some of these young men, but as far as the program, he doesn't have to. He doesn't have to. How do I say? Make decisions day in and day out, and what the program's going to do. So you don't have to worry about that. We have someone in place to do that. Right now, he's calling the offense. I don't see where the problem would be. If everything stops at the head coach, because perfect example is, okay, during all this stuff that Baylor has gone through and all the trouble that they're saying Art Briles is in for the few years that he was there, who was the offensive coordinator during that time? Does anybody know? Or is anybody talking about that? Or, you know what I mean? Who's the equipment manager? Nobody knows, because it starts and stops with the head coach. So he's not being put back into that same position. He's being put into a much lesser role. We already have someone in that position that's there to call the shots and is there to make the decisions for the team. So I don't feel he should be publicly shamed forever. Again, it'd be a little bit different if he was personally accused of doing some of these things. But some people may say he's just as bad for not reporting it when he knew about it. Who's to say? But I do know that every situation, the leader gets in trouble no matter what.
That is true.
And the leader also sometimes will step in front and take the bullet, even though whether they did something wrong or not, because that's the role. Just like the father of a household, that's the role. So I'd like to know what some of our, people in our Black community will want. And when I say our Black community, I mean our community. All right. And don't get me wrong, I love celebrities. I love, I respect them. I thank them for going out there and providing a blueprint for some of us to follow to get to their steps, some of the football analysts and the commentators. But to be real, they don't live in my community. A lot, you know what I mean? A lot of them have never lived in our community as adults. They may have grown up there. Oh, I see my parents struggle, this, and that. I get it, and I'm glad that you made it out. But since you've been an adult, you haven't been in my community. So I don't want you speaking for me. You know what I mean? I see a lot of those analysts go on there. The Black community, this, not. Like, how would you know? You don't live here. I'm not talking about where you go get your haircut or where you go to eat on Sundays. We live here. And this is, you know what I mean? And we're looking at somebody like him as coming in and teaching our young men the things they need to get to the step that you're at. So don't speak about how we should feel about it. I'm telling you from the perspective of a father, like we said, he didn't personally, that we know of, he didn't personally do anything to anybody. He got in trouble for protecting his players. He got in trouble for, and again, I'm speaking from what I know. He got in trouble for maybe not telling on or not reporting young Black men doing something they hadn't been convicted of. I want this guy. If he came and sat in my living room and said that I'm going to protect your son at all costs, which a lot of them do, he proved it. So again, I pray for the victims of everything that happened, but I can't put it on this man. Mm-hmm. The people that did something to those, I don't even know if they assaulted men or women, but whoever they sexually assaulted, they should be buried under the jail.
Exactly. And I'm just answering the question when Randa said it would be worse for Black coaches don't get fair chances without issues. We're saying the public perception and the protection of our own people when someone of our kind, our culture gets in trouble. That's what he was talking about. Of course, he would have been scrutinized really bad because you know how Black coaches in this game, they have to go above and beyond to get even an ounce of respect, it seems. So we understand that, but he was talking about if the roles were reversed and a Black coach got in trouble, there would be some kind of public support. Now, we can't lie and say there wouldn't. When we defended, I mean, looking at the 90s, Simpson, in the 90s, I'm not trying to say the full name to get my channel messed up, but there was people defending him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, I mean,
and like I said, we'd be so upset if he was being kind of outcasted for something someone else did. And if he didn't tell on him, we'd all be standing around and say, yeah, we'd be patting him on the back for not snitching. But because, you know what I mean? Because he's of a different background, a lot of people seem to have an issue with it. But to be honest, the way I'm looking at it is, it was great. The idea of having him was great. The idea of having him is now gone. So we were, let it go. And time to move on. And we'll focus on, the next person they plan on bringing in, if they plan on bringing in anybody. But either way, we're there to do a job and get an education. So that's what we're going to do, no matter, who's on staff.
And I want to get my spin on it before we move on to the next segment. Him being the head coach is part of the job of, you're the figurehead of the program. Whatever happens, you're going to be in trouble. I'm from Texas, and if you talk with most Texans that know about the situation, they 1,000% agree it's the administration. The administration has all the tools and resources to make sure everything is all well and done. And to cover their tails, what do? You blame the next thing. You're not going to blame the AD. You're not going to blame. I believe the AD was still there for a little bit longer, and I think took some time off at the time.
And I heard, from what I've read, they gave Art some cash out the door, right? On this,
yeah, they did give him some cash out the door.
So why you gonna fire somebody that supposedly did something wrong and then give them cash and be like, here? To me, that's saying, we're firing you without much cause, but here's some compensation. I don't know.
And I'm not saying, before we move on, I'm not saying that Briles is perfect, because he wasn't. I read the reports, but I'm saying, what's punishment? Are there second chances, or are we just ending people's life for just being part of something? That's all I got to say. But I was looking at the pivot, my brother, and were you there when Ricky Williams was there?
Yes, we were.
How was that?
That's Ricky. When you're from Texas, Oh,
that's yeah.
Ricky. And, Ricky and I were coming out of high school around the same time. He was I think he's a little bit after me. I'm sorry. But, he's from Southern Cali. And I just remember all of us praying that he stayed somewhere close to home. But he ended up going to Texas, and then Reggie Bush ended up coming this way. But just being around Ricky, all the guys, but being around Ricky was just being in his presence. And he was so nice. He was so humble. He spoke very well to my son. All of the men did, and a lot of them still do. He was a great guy. The professionalism he spoke with, he's so confident when he speaks, and he's so real, which I think makes him confident. He's not faking anything. He speaks well. Everything about him was professional. And I'd love to see him as a coach somewhere. Like what he said, his goal was. I'd love to see that.
Yeah, man. This is people forget how talented Ricky Williams was, man. I mean, he played in the wrong time. He should have played in this area where there's less drug testing.
He was just ahead of the game.
Yeah.
I hate to see a lot of the players that got in trouble for things back then that are now so acceptable. He was a little bit ahead of the game, but I remember watching him the first couple of years in New Orleans. It was like, here, take this ball and run through that wall. That's kind of what he went through at first. But even when he got to Miami, he was still just a physical specimen with intelligence. He's a great guy. Great guy. And all of the people on that whole cast, they let till right now Tyson can text them or whatever, and they respond right away.
Oh,
So
that's dope.
yeah, they literally respond right away, especially Ryan Clark. So hopefully that Pivot podcast gets released soon. There was some stuff going on as far as the agreement on how and where to release it, because it does involve, the college aspect. So as you know, there's so many NCAA rules and regulations. So hopefully they're working through all that and it'll be released soon.
Man, I can't wait. Looking forward to it, man. I mean, I was a little kid, very little, and this is when I first looked at football and didn't care about it because I just when you're 7 years old, you just worry about cartoons and everything. You see this big running back running over Texas A&M and looking like the ish. My father, when he was alive, he always said if USC was really good early on, before Pete Carroll got there, he probably would have went there.
Yeah, and maybe you watched his interview on there? I'm sure you did.
I watched that. I had to watch that.
Yeah, I watched it a couple of times. I go back and get bits and pieces. You know what? And I try to get my kids, and they're getting better as they get older, but they're teenagers, to watch all of those and learn everyone's story, because that's what we're trying to get in their shoes. So our training, our approach to life, we really base it on a lot of the different things we hear. So Ricky talking about how if he had the chance, like a lot of our athletes have now, and remember they said, would you choose an HBCU? He said, they said, would you consider an HBCU? He said, consider. It wouldn't even be a question. It wouldn't even be a question. I'd be at one where he could go to Hugh Jackson or Deion Sanders. He was like, of course, that's a no-brainer. So things like that make dad look a lot better, because I talked to my son about going into an HBCU, and I'm like, see, a lot of these players, they're saying now if they would have had the chance, they would flip the script, and that's where they'd be.
I like how the light-skinned brother with the dreads, I can't believe I forgot his name.
Channing Crowder.
Channing Crowder. Man, his tune kind of changed, man. I remember when he was on the podcast before, and he would talk about, oh yeah, Florida. Oh, I wouldn't have done it, not with the facilities they have. And he's now seeing the change that HBCUs are having right now. Right now, it's cool to go to HBCU. It's different. If a big time player recruits, commits, to a HBCU, the fanfare, the love, and they're seeing it from our people. I told a friend, a lot of folks saw the reality when a talented kid doesn't go to a top-notch PWI and they go to a HBCU. They get name called, ridiculed, their rankings drop. I remember Grambling State had a couple of players who were low 4 stars, and they dropped to 3 stars. What's that kid from Lancaster, Faison, the receiver?
Yes,
he had an 80. He had an 80% grade, which is a 4-star on ESPN, when he committed to Texas. I think it was like a year and a half ago, and all of a sudden his ranking dropped to a 3-star.
Right. And the best thing you can do about that is just go out and ball.
Yes.
That's the best thing. That's the only thing you can do. I hate those rankings. I hate all that stuff because it's so unjust. Of course it's needed, for right now it's needed because it's an eye candy generation, right? We'd rather read about something instead of watch it with our own eyes. Let's read about this kid. Let's blah, blah, blah. And I can speak for us specifically, like at Long Beach Poly. And this goes the same with a lot of other high schools, but I'm speaking of the one we come from. There's so much talent on the team.
Right.
That not 1 or 2 people are going to have all the numbers. Like for a senior, right? Everybody looks at, I'll speak about my son. Everybody looks at Tyson and they're like, how are you not a 4-star? But I'll be honest, his stats weren't staggering. But again, I think I spoke about this before, but playing opposite him was Jason Robinson, who's a USC commit as a sophomore. So, there's only one ball. And then, our running back, Devin Samples, had well over, like, he was on pace for a 2,000-yard season. So everybody, instead of having staggering numbers, everybody has good numbers across the board. Same with I can say that about our linebackers, everybody. There's so much talent that the stats get spread widely.
Right.
And then a lot of these rankings, a lot of these selections to all county teams, all state teams, they pass over some of the kids that may be considered to be better, but they don't have the stats. Perfect example. So we win CIF out here. All right. We won CIF for our division. But the all CIF team, we only had like 3 players make the team. None of our receivers made it. I don't think our running backs made it, but it's because we were blowing everybody out. And our coach was showing mercy, so have to wait. Even in the playoffs, he'd pull them out at halftime. So their stats weren't crazy. But he believes in letting some of the younger ones come in and play, letting some of the kids that don't get a chance to play, let them play if the score is up, right? It makes sense.
Right.
But because of that, I think we had 3 players voted on the all CIF team, and we're the ones that won CIF. How crazy is that? But it went like that with voting for a lot of different things. A lot of our players didn't make it, but it's because they don't have the staggering stats and people aren't really watching the game. They're just going by numbers.
Yeah, and I respect Paulie for doing that. They've been doing that for years. Like, if they're blowing teams out, they're going to let the younger guys play to get that experience. Because you got everybody going D1, and then you're losing players, and they don't rebuild, they reload. And that's a luxury that many schools don't have, especially it's a public school, correct?
A public school, like in the hood with no money.
Right.
Like, I mean no money at all. Thank God our coaches have such love for the community. The majority of them are alumni, and they really do it for free. They really coach at Long Beach Poly for peanuts compared to what they could make if they went somewhere else. So shout out to them for doing that, and I appreciate it. But like we said, it's just the rating system is kind of hard, and I thank God Hugh Jackson has the eye for talent. And he's like, you know what? I know a baller when I see one. He told me straight out, he's like, this is what I do. I can recognize a baller from a mile away, regardless of his stats and his numbers.
I've said this a bunch of times every time I talk about Grambling. One thing I like about their recruiting strategy, transfer portal is a good tool to use if you got, people transferring out and you need to add in some more players after the recruiting period. But a lot of these teams are dependent on it and not building through high school talent. Hugh Jackson is mixing the JUCOs, which is top notch, with talented high school players and only a few transfers, but they're impact transfers. They're not just you got schools just giving a scholarship to a player that's a transfer player that won't even contribute when you could have done the same thing with a high school athlete. And I love that Hugh Jackson is doing that. Can you explain how that is so much better, in your opinion, if it is, to build with high school players?
Because he's getting high school players that are, you can tell they're raw. You know what I mean? They've been taught. And I speak about my son. He's raw and he's been taught very well, but he hasn't had the years of experience to make a lot of the details habitual yet. So going up against some of these JUCO players that are men, 21, 22, balling, he knows that's going to make his younger ones better a lot faster than them going up against each other every day. So let's say a receiver or a running back or somebody coming in from high school going up against a linebacker or a defensive back from JUCO that has a little bit more experience. And this is what I'm trying to knock into my son's head. It's about years and years of experience to make it habitual. That will make you a great player, to where you don't think about doing it. You don't remember that you need to do it. Your body just does it. And I'd say that's what some of these older players have on you. And don't get me wrong, I love my son. He's so full of confidence. he's like, I just got to get a little bit bigger and I can play with no problem, which may or may not be true. I don't know. But my point is, you're going to be playing against grown men with some of them have kids. They're out there with a completely different objective than you are. When you go out there with the attitude of, if I don't make this tackle or if I let you catch this ball, my kids don't eat tonight. That's a lot different than somebody like my son who just turned 18 yesterday and has had a beautiful life. I said, you're going up against people with a different mentality. So I think Hugh mixing that up is going to be really good for, like, let's say for the JUCO player, right? Because he's like, I got this hothead high school player coming in here who thinks he's this and that. I need to work hard. He's not taking my spot. And then you have the high school kid who's coming in oblivious to what a grown man has to go to when he leaves the field every day. And that grown man is helping put it on him every day. Imagine how much better he'll get. So
exactly.
I'm hoping my son kind of carries I'll call it the tradition or even the habits of what we have out here. They go out and just train on their own with each other a lot. And sometimes, they're breaking up fights with each other, all that. But then afterwards, they're going to sit down and have breakfast together. But, that's a ritual that they have out here. Go out and practice with your teammates, DBs and receivers, or whoever wants to learn to run routes, whoever wants to learn to cover. And the linemen do it as well. They go out and do one-on-ones with each other after school sometimes. So I'm hoping he continues that when he gets there, and he spoke about that on the news channel out there. He said, we create a brotherhood by doing stuff like that. So I'm hoping they continue to do that and help each other grow. I appreciate some of these JUCO players not giving up on their dream and then finally getting the realization of, I made it to a college. And now I'm going to go back and school some of these younger ones as well as sharpen my skills at the same time.
Absolutely. And the brotherhood, man, that's just, man, I love when sports is like that, because I believe that you can learn from sports and take it in and bring it to your own life, like lessons of leadership, or no matter what you do. If you work at, let's say, a person that they used to be a football player, now he's working at Silicon Valley, and he knows how to handle adversity. So when adversity shows up, he remembered what his coaches and teammates taught him.
Man, can I co-sign that real quick? This is what I've been preaching for the past 15 years, right? I didn't get a lot of help trying to build some football programs before, younger ones, because I was moving too slow. I was more worried about having fun and fundamentals, while we were moving into the age of we need to win, right? So I'm like, listen, this is what in sports, you learn to show up on time. You learn to dress a certain way. You learn to receive information and instruction and then put it into practice. And most importantly, in my opinion, as a young male or female, you learn that there are other people depending on your effort, which is the same thing that translates into a family. So to me, that's what sports is about. If you can take it to the next level, great. But we've all grown up with a lot of young athletes, even when we were young, and you were like, that person has the talent. If they keep going, that's the talent to make it to the league. And then maybe midway, 7th grade, 8th grade, freshman year, whatever, they stop for whatever reason. So, you know what I mean? So making it to the pros or making it all the way, to me, it shouldn't be the goal. If it happens, it happens. I wasn't positive that my son was going to make it to a Division I football program. I wasn't at all, because he was a late bloomer mentally. And physically, athletically. We always knew, I'm 6'2", my wife's 5'11". We knew the size was going to be there. He showed that early. He was really long and lanky compared to everyone else. But people would always ask me, we have the 4 sons. People would always say, do you think all 4 of your sons can make it? And I used to be like, if it takes what our 3rd son, what Titus has, then no. Because he was light years ahead of them, athletically and mentally. everything that we just spoke about, he embraced that. The showing up on time, the dressing a certain way, the working out on his own. I mean, out there in the dirt with ground balls, just nonstop. And then my youngest kind of picked it up. And I saw that, and I'd be like, no, because the others aren't picking up on what sports is really about. To me, they were more worried about, the winning and the losing and stuff like that, where he was worried about the grind. They all ended up taking on that way of thinking later. But at the time, I was telling myself, I was like, no, there's no way they'll make it, because they're looking at it wrong. They're not looking at it for what it is. So, like you said, the life lessons learned along the way. Some kids pick it up early, some pick it up later. Unfortunately, most parents don't get it. That's the problem. A kid will do will go whatever direction we point him in. So a lot of the life lessons, like I said, showing up on time, receiving instruction, learning to work with others, you can't put that on, you can't put that out the window. That's what sports is about.
And then closing, before I close, of course, I'm going to read some of these comments. HBCU Spotlight, salute to you, my brother. Great channel. Subscribe to his channel. He says, same with Travis Hunter. They moved him from 1 to number 2. We all saw it like a thief in the night, too. I'm like, what, number 2? I've never heard of him being the number 2.
And how they did that, obviously, like, so what? We don't care what y'all think about it.
Uh-huh.
That was like a huge slap in the face.
Yeah, that's a huge middle finger to everybody. So yeah, we're gonna reduce his ranking to number 2. We won't even address it. This is pathetic, man. Also, I know we mentioned the Art Briles situation. All of us have different opinions. Mm-hmm. Even my opinion is different. Even I stated that, even though it's true that the administration should be largely responsible because they have the power to do stuff, and they did give Art Briles a payout for a reason worth $13 million. Hush hush money. This is reported.
Yes.
But everything could be true that he didn't handle it right. So when someone said, what if it's your daughter? Of course you'd be mad if someone handled a situation. But I'm going to tell you what my mother told me. You investigate and you read up on situations, because how many people they may have been in trouble of something, but it shouldn't be like it's worse than what it is. It's just, I'm gonna give you an example of someone sold weed, but they're doing a 30-year bid for it. We know that's dumb, but that's the game.
But I want to know what people wanted Art to do. He's the football coach. What did you want him to do? The police were handling it already. I mean, it was taken to the police, correct? There were reports made. So what more do you want? What do you want him to do now? I don't know. I don't understand. But like I said, honest, and not to not to hate on the subject or anything, but I'm like, I wish it was what it was a few days ago, but it's not. And we got to move on.
Yeah, got to move on. He's right. And we all know that the powers that be controls the situation. So I'm not going to act like an idiot and say that someone with less power has the power to control every single thing. We know what these schools do. While they pay people off, they sitting back in the Bahamas on a vacation, drinking margaritas all day, not even having a care in the world.
Because when he got hired, you didn't see Baylor come out and say, "Oh, he shouldn't be hired. He shouldn't be this. He shouldn't be that." They sat back and stayed quiet, and a lot of their faithful were sending messages in support. Of course, I'm on a lot of the Gram fan pages now, and I've seen a lot of Baylor responses saying, "We're all of a sudden Grambling fans. We'll be at every game." So if he, he's being supported by the people that really that were there and that know. And like I said, I don't want to offend anybody because this is a very touchy subject. I don't have any daughters, so I don't know what it would feel like if somebody did violated them in any way. which is, sickening to me. But, pray that one day he does get an opportunity to redeem himself.
Exactly. And pray for the victims who still are to this day living with that they too find justice to the people who did that just egregious act of theirs. Because that's the most important part.
That's it.
And I one thing good about today's time that's different than back then. Today's women are stronger mentally. They have more. It's more support. We have Title IX. We have more women in position of power, which is a lot different than years ago. So I'm not saying it's perfect now, but it's getting better, and I like it.
You got to be careful. Today's women will beat your ass. They ain't playing no more.
Oh yeah, they defended themselves.
My wife walks down the street all by herself late at night. She's like, I wish somebody would come out here and mess with me. She's like, I'm bigger than most men, so yeah. So you got to be careful nowadays.
And let me read this. Yeah, they were fired, but it did took a process before they were fired. It wasn't like off the spot. Where I remember it, it was people were saying, "Wait, why are they still here? They need to be fired," and they eventually got fired due to public pressure. But yeah, you're somewhat right on that. Grambling, they're going to be just fine. I love what they're doing at their university. There's
another big name that's floating around as a potential offensive coordinator. Everybody stay tuned.
Oh, yeah. You heard it from the man first, man. Mr. Bordeaux, you're always welcome, my brother, to RawTruth Media, your family, man. And I'll catch up with you anytime.
Okay, real quick, shout out to RawTruth Media. I appreciate you for, putting me on here and talking with me. And I appreciate when we just chat back and forth, and the conversations no one else sees. I appreciate that. Shout out to the Graham fam. You guys have been wonderful. You guys have been great. Shout out to a lot of the other alumni and supporters of other HBCUs. You guys have been great too. And everybody putting this thing together as one and really doing something to help not only build our community, but introduce the world to our community. And we're involving a lot of other nationalities and cultures and letting them understand what it is that we're about. So shout out to you guys for doing it right. Much love, brother.
All right. Peace out. Peace and blessings, everyone. I hope y'all have a great day.
Black Rabbit.